Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we're going to explore what prehistoric locusts really are. Deep within the evolutionary chaos that defines the universe of Jurassic World, there exists a threat that doesn't walk on reptilian legs or roar with echoes from the Mesozoic. This time, the danger doesn't come from the ground, nor is it displayed behind vitrines of reconstructed DNA. It crawls, it hides, it flies, and it consumes everything in its path. No, we're not talking about dinosaurs. We're talking about locusts, but not the kind we know from history books or the ones that sweep across the skies in southern hemisphere countries. No, these are different. They are monsters by design, replicas of a nightmare that has completely rewritten the meaning of the word plague. These creatures, known by many as giant locusts or prehistoric locusts, are not the result of an evolutionary accident or a natural event triggered by the coexistence of humans and dinosaurs. They are, instead, the direct consequence of meticulous, deliberate, almost surgical genetic manipulation, orchestrated by one of the darkest entities in the Jurassic World universe, Bison Genetics. This corporation, which once operated in the shadow of InGen, bided its time. While the world reeled from Hammond's mistakes and his prehistoric clones, Bison worked in silence, moving piece by piece on a global chessboard where biotechnology is the most powerful currency. And then they made their move, not to recreate the past, but to dominate the present. The prehistoric locusts are, in essence, next-generation biological weapons, monsters born with a specific purpose: to devour key crops, generate food crises, and present genetically modified seeds, created by the very company that caused the shortages, as the only viable solution. A massive manipulation plan disguised as agricultural innovation, a carefully crafted trap in which the company positioned itself as both villain and savior. And what's most disturbing isn't just their size or veracity, but their efficiency. These creatures possess unnatural resilience, brutal adaptability, and an aggression that defies all known patterns of any contemporary insect. This is not a case of an experiment gone wrong. It's a case of an experiment perfectly under control, until it no longer was. In this video, we'll delve into the dark corners of this story. We'll uncover the true origins of these locusts, unravel the master plan behind their creation, and explore how these abominations became a threat as impactful, if not more so, than the dinosaurs themselves. Because while dinosaurs represent the past we never should have unearthed, the locusts symbolize the dystopian future we may be building this very moment. Our first encounter with these creatures doesn't take place in a lab, nor in a ravaged field. It happens in the official prologue of the saga, a majestic sequence set over 65 million years ago in the heart of the Cretaceous period. Amidst a dense atmosphere and primitive sounds, we see one of these locusts landing on the leg of a gigantic sauropod beside a lake. The contrast in scale is unsettling. Even then, in its ancestral form, this creature was already disproportionately large. The scene, silent but loaded with tension, gives way to a brutal clash between a Tyrannosaurus rex and a Giganotosaurus, clearly signaling that in Dominion, danger not only walks among us, it also flies. Fast forward to the year 2022, the world has changed. InGen collapsed after the events of 2018, and Bison, now led by the unscrupulous Lewis Dodgson, has risen on the global biotechnology stage. Dodgson sees, in the Cretaceous locusts, an unrepeatable opportunity. Using fossilized remains, he extracts DNA and blends it with that of modern desert locusts, species known for their destructive invasion capabilities, thus creating a hybrid never before seen. To make it happen, Dodgson enlists the infamous Dr. Henry Wu, a familiar face in the franchise. Wu has been both the architect of wonders and a catalyst of disasters. However, This time, his role is more ambiguous. While he follows Dodgson's orders, he also pursues his own scientific vision to use the locusts as vehicles to spread beneficial genetic mutations in plants, granting them greater climate resistance. But Wu's dream, if it was ever sincere, is drowned by the corporate interests of his employer. The project, internally known as Hexapod, was launched without proper regulations or evaluations. The locusts were supposedly unable to consume crops made from biosin seeds, which would give the company total control over the agricultural market. But deep down, no one considered, or chose to ignore, the possibility that these creatures could evolve on their own, that they might escape human control, spread beyond designated zones, and become an apocalypse with wings. It all started quietly, from an underground lab nestled in the Italian Alps. Level 6, Room L4. There, swarms were incubated and monitored. Their patterns were studied, their instincts trained. What seemed like scientific oversight was, in truth, a Pandora's box waiting to be opened. The locusts soon demonstrated accelerated evolutionary capabilities, spontaneous mutations, exponential reproduction, and most alarming of all, collective intelligence. Then came the breaking point. From the vast plains of Texas to the cornfields of Iowa, swarms began to devastate entire agricultural regions in a matter of days. They didn't just destroy crops, they destroyed lives. They crushed dreams. They left hunger, desperation, and a dark, haunting silence, as if even the wind itself had given up. One of the most heartbreaking scenes in Dominion occurs precisely in this context. A family in Texas is attacked without warning. The locusts arrive at twilight, covering the sky like a biological storm. The mother, desperate, drags her children into the barn as the insects slam against the walls, as if they know life is hiding inside. The pounding is deafening, and the message is clear. These creatures are not mistakes. They are warnings. When the sky began to darken, it was not because of thunderstorms or ashes from some dormant volcano that suddenly awakened. No, it was because of wings. Dense, massive, buzzing wings that multiplied like a living, devouring shadow. Across the planet, from Asian rice paddies to the cornfields in the heart of the United States, crops were consumed in minutes by a force impossible to stop. It was not the return of the dinosaurs that had humanity staggering on the brink of collapse. It was not roars from the past. It was locusts, but not just any locusts. They were giant. They were hybrids. And worst of all, they were engineered. Amid the chaos, as the world clamored for answers and governments scrambled to devise theories, a solitary voice rose above the confusion. That of Dr. Elsa Adler, an internationally renowned paleobotanist whose expertise not only included fossilized plants, but also the effects of extinct species on modern ecosystems. While the media and political leaders blamed the presence of dinosaurs for the ecological imbalance, Adler saw something different, something that didn't fit, neither in the food chain nor in natural logic. In her preliminary analyses, Elsa examined charred remains of locusts found in Texas. Upon studying their internal structures, she discovered an anomalous pattern, segments of genetic code that did not belong to any modern species. Fossil fragments, DNA rescued from the deep past, DNA from the Cretaceous. It was impossible, unless, of course, someone had deliberately manipulated it. And the most unsettling part, there was no sign that InGen, the infamous company behind the original Jurassic Park, was involved. The modified DNA, the hidden sequences, the genetic signature, all pointed to another entity, one operating in the shadows of biotechnological progress. Biosin genetics. Confirmation came with the testimony of a woman from the Midwest, a third-generation farmer. Through tears, she told Adler that her farm was devastated by the swarms, while across the road, her neighbor's crops, grown with biosin seeds, remained untouched, as if invisible to the predators. Elsa, a scientist, but also human, understood immediately. The locusts were genetically designed to ignore those plants. Hunger, then, was no accident. It was a weapon. Aware of the magnitude of what she had uncovered, Elsa sought allies. She turned to the legendary paleontologist Alan Grant, a familiar face who had spent decades trying to stay away from Jurassic drama, without success. Skeptical at first, he joined the case when Elsa's genetic evidence revealed similarities to manipulation patterns he knew well, the ones used to bring back the T-Rex itself. Joining them was Ian Malcolm, chaotic and always ironic, who now worked as an internal advisor for Biosin. From inside, he saw how the company was hiding not only experiments with locusts, but a full architecture of global manipulation. Malcolm became their point of access, the mole, who would allow them to infiltrate the heart of the problem. Biosin's main laboratory, buried beneath a mountain reserve in Italy. But the story did not end there. In parallel, Claire Deering and Owen Grady, former members of the Jurassic World project, tracked the black market in Malta. What they found was terrifying. The hybrid locusts were no longer just a plague. They had become a luxury commodity. Illegal restaurants sold them as exotic delicacies, their meat prized for supposed aphrodisiac properties and rarity. Scientific horror had become part of human consumption, as always happens when the forbidden becomes an object of desire. As chaos unfolded, the silent architect of this biotechnological disaster began to awaken from his ethical slumber. Dr. Henry Wu, the same genius who brought the Indominus Rex to life, and later the Indoraptor. In his mind, the Locust Project began as an attempt at redemption, a way to spread positive mutations that would protect plants from climate change. Inspired by the case of Charlotte Lockwood, whose genetic manipulation saved her daughter Macy, Wu believed this time he would do the right thing. But the result was another monster. One more, and perhaps the worst of all. Consumed by guilt, Henry Wu devised a desperate plan to create an altered locust carrying within it a pathogen capable of exterminating the plague from inside. A sort of programmed biological suicide. To do this, he needed a unique genetic source. The DNA of Macy and Beta, the offspring of the Velociraptor Blue. Only that genetic material contained the replication keys that would allow control and destruction of the locusts without harming other species. But there was someone unwilling to allow it. Lewis Dodgson, CEO of Biosin. Cold, visionary, and deeply immoral, Dodgson saw the locusts not as a mistake, but as an advantage. For him, the destruction of global crops was only a necessary step to establish a new agricultural order, one where only Biosin controlled the world's food supply. Collapse, for him, was part of the plan. Hunger, a strategy. Human life, a statistic. The turning point came when Macy and Beta escaped their confinement inside the Biosin complex. They accidentally triggered an emergency protocol, unleashing chaos. In the process, the caged locusts began to stir, and Dodgson, desperate, ordered their extermination by fire. However, he underestimated the scope of his own creation. Instead of dying, the locusts escaped engulfed in flames, unleashing an apocalyptic scene. A burning swarm crossed the skies and set fire to the forest surrounding the complex. The sanctuary, the scientific base, the corporate dream, all burned. Dodgson did not escape. His end came not by human judgment, but by natural justice. He died alone, among ashes, watching his legacy disintegrate in flames. Meanwhile, Dr. Wu, with the help of Grant, Adler, and Malcolm, released the modified locust at a strategic point. The effect was immediate. Like a silent symphony of death, the swarms began collapsing one by one. Within days, the plague vanished. the world breathed again. The evidence collected by Adler and Grant was handed over to the United States government. What followed was an unprecedented global scandal. Biosyn was dismantled. Its executives pursued. The company's name was forever stained, and its story became a warning for future generations. But what were these locusts really? They were not just enlarged insects. They were entomological colossi, nightmares with wings, measuring between 50 and 80 centimeters, with a hardened exoskeleton of dark brown tones covered in dorsal spines. They had 6 legs, of which the hind ones could propel them more than 15 meters in a single leap. Their membranous wings unfolded with a dry, disturbing sound, generating a buzz similar to a turbine. Their heads featured multiple large, bulbous compound eyes with enhanced night vision and antennae that detected even the slightest vibrations. Their mouths were tools of destruction, serrated jaws capable of tearing bark, stems, and even synthetic materials. Their diet was omnivorous. Their metabolism accelerated, their reproductive capacity alarming. Under favorable conditions, a single swarm could double in less than 48 hours. And the most sinister trait, they changed color in mid-flight, thanks to genetic sequences borrowed from cephalopods like squid. This chameleon-like ability, already used in the creation of the Indominus Rex, made them even harder to detect. In terms of threat, they were on par with any alpha predator of the Jurassic world. But their strength was not individual. It was in the swarm, in the mass, in the number. Like a collective brain, without mercy or logic, they razed everything in their path, leaving behind a landscape of ashes.